Beat it up, catch a charge. Extra large and extra hard. Put this pussy right in your face. Swipe your nose like a credit card. Hop on top, I wanna ride. I do a Kegel while it's inside. Spit in my mouth, look in my eyes. This pussy's wet, come take a dive.
All right. Hi, James, and welcome to the show. Thanks for being here today because we have a topic that I'm going to continue talking about because it's near and dear to my heart. We actually just did a show on our other channel, Common Ground, and I guess it's the topic of the discussion is kind of, for lack of a better way to phrase it, and maybe you could help me phrase it in a better way, but like the no-ho versus pro-ho conversation, you know?
Yeah,
so
or one might call
it, we
it
could say that.
a conversation of sexual liberation versus sexual repression, maybe?
Am I calling for sexual repression?
I don't know, are you?
I guess not. You know, I guess it's kind of relevant the way you want to look at it. I mean, I certainly don't want to say it's pro-sex versus anti-sex because I'm definitely not anti-sex. So,
well, yeah, but like you can kind of tell which position we're taking based on how you talk about it and how I talk about it, because you call it pro-ho and I call it pro-repression on your side. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you can kind of see the bias already.
Absolutely. I'll agree to that. So however you want to phrase it, that's the discussion for today. Hey, Piper. Hi, James.
Hi, Piper.
Well, what do you got going on here today? Is this your goth outfit? Yeah, I'm goth now, just like you and James. You like it?
The hat is nice.
Thank you. I don't know if that really fits you. I think you're really just kind of making fun of us today. Are you here to join in on the conversation, or are you just here to make fun of me and James? So, what's the topic? Well, it's kind of the no-ho versus the sexual empowerment argument. Oh, you mean like the WAP thing? Are you conservatives still talking about this shit? Well, I actually think it's an important topic, and I have more to say on the subject, but this is probably going to wrap up my views on the subject, but no, there's more to say, I think.
There's been a lot of thinking and, development.
Yeah, we've thought a lot about it, and we think that there's more to examine, more to explore here. So, did you want to weigh in on the topic? Yeah, I'll weigh in. I'm pro-WAP. Is that good? I love it.
Yeah, it's a good song. It's a good video.
You go get yours, ladies! Get paid! Pop that pussy! All right, Piper. You like Milo, right? Yeah, he's a hot piece of green fuzz. All right, so how do you think he's going to feel when he sees this show and finds out about your attitude towards sex? Well, I guess my point that I'm trying to make here is I don't have so much of a problem with the message of WAP if it's being considered being sexual empowerment. My issue with it is more of the pro-prostitution side of it, if you know what I mean.
I don't think personally that WAP is about prostitution. There are songs about prostitution, but also like just because you like a song that is about activities that it doesn't mean you like partake in those activities. You know what I mean? Like if you listen to a song, supposing it was hypothetically about prostitution, I don't think Cardi B needs to prostitute to get money is what I'm trying to say. But supposing it was, like, just because you listen to a song or watch a show about that or something like that doesn't mean that you yourself are involved in that. It just means that you find it entertaining in my view. So.
Okay, well, I get that.
Yeah.
But what about people like Piper here who seem to take the message to heart?
I don't know, is Piper a prostitute? Because that's really all that matters, I guess, in that conversation.
What do you consider a prostitute?
I don't know, having sex for money, right?
Well, all right. Basically, the point that I'm trying to make is that having an attitude like Piper's where go get yours, girl, go get paid, is that necessarily going to attract the type of guy that you're looking for, Piper? You're attracted to a good guy, and when he hears how you might consider him a source of money in exchange for sex, it might turn him off. Okay, Piper, well, James and I are going to watch a video and do a reaction. Did you want to stick around for that? Sounds boring. All right, well, I think you made your point. I should go ahead and get out of here. Bye, everyone. Okay, so we are going to do a reaction on a Jacqueline Glenn video that James sent over to me, and I watched, and I thought it was kind of interesting. It was thought-provoking as far as I was concerned, and I thought maybe
it did annoy the crap out of you, though.
It
Let's
did.
be honest.
But, you know, just because I'm annoyed about something doesn't mean that it didn't provoke thought.
Right.
And so maybe, you know, being annoyed is not always a bad thing.
I don't think it is. I want to encourage people to watch things that make them uncomfortable. So
right. And I just really want to reiterate that what James and I are trying to achieve here, and I think the most important thing that we're trying to achieve is that we want people to be able to see both sides of the argument. You know, it's very easy for us to just misunderstand, just to be annoyed with each other and not take the time to see things from the other person's point of view. And I kind of feel, honestly, that in the last video that we did together with Grayson, which we will definitely be leaving a link to, and you got to go check it out.
It's really entertaining. It gets really like saucy at parts, so I highly recommend it. All
right, yeah, you definitely got to go watch it. This is kind of a follow-up to that. But you know, I think for both sides, there was a lot of defending our point of view. You know, I mean, we listen, but we were mostly listening with the mindset of okay, yeah, but you know, and I'd like to really dedicate a little bit of time to making sure the other person's being heard. I think that's where it's very important, because even in any kind of relationship, even if it's a regular relationship between a man or woman or whatever, that's why they go to counseling, because the counselor says, okay, now the wording that you need to use here is, I heard you. You know, you need to be heard. And when we're just kind of talking past each other, I think that's the biggest problem, because you still leave the situation being angry. You know, like you said everything you wanted to say, but did the other person really hear you, you know? And even if you don't agree, just the fact that you were heard is very important. So I was
trying to frame both of you guys' arguments towards each other, so that I was like hoping that you guys, I was trying to like phrase it in a way that I think the other person would respond to. So hopefully that helped. Like, I hope you didn't leave that conversation angry.
No, not necessarily.
But I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't approach it from a different angle now. And like, I mean, the entire time, like, it's not that I don't understand what you're saying, because I think there's value in the message that you're trying to convey to people. I just want to focus on how that message is conveyed. And also, I want to ease fears about certain things that I don't really think are the problem, I guess, if that makes sense. Not that there isn't a problem ever, but, you know, like, I don't want you to be paranoid that, like, all of America is going to crumble because of this. You know what I mean? Like, that's, but it doesn't mean that you can't encourage responsible behavior. Like, that's a good message. So that's how
Right. It definitely needs to be a happy medium. You know, and I think we can come closer to a happy medium if both sides are heard and understood to a certain degree. You know, and you don't need to come away from it being convinced of the other person's point of view, but just to be able to put yourself in their shoes. And I just think it's very interesting that you and I also discovered, not that it wasn't already kind of common knowledge, but it really hit home with me about how different two people's points of view can be, just entirely based on their personal experiences.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, personal experience colors people's opinions about situations, and like makes you kind of assume that your personal experience is the norm, which is part of the message of that video. And it's important to try to keep in mind that it isn't. And like, when people talk about social justice issues and whatnot, like the thing that they like, that the more well-meaning people are intending to do is just bring attention to the fact that this is some people's experience. It's just that a lot of the time it ends up coming off a little too much, or like not said the right way or something like that. And if you have the more bad faith people, it gets very accusatory. But, you know, it is important to let people see the world from all different kinds of viewpoints, I guess, in order to determine what's right and what's not right, I guess. So.
Yeah, I'm learning that more than ever before. When I first started, you know, doing this, like just being involved in like social political ideas, and even started doing the YouTube channel, it was coming from a very one-sided point of view without me realizing it, you know?
Well, I think you definitely like, you've always seemed to have been open-minded. Like you want to be saying things that are true, and you're not trying to like mislead people or anything like that. So,
no,
so I respect that. Like I just want everybody to be like that, regardless of what side they're on. Like I want it to be in good faith, where you're genuinely trying to say what you think is the right thing, and not just because, you know, you already said it, so you have to stick to it now. You know what I mean? Like.
And I was also been very leery of exploring, you know, the different sides of it, because you do feel comfortable in your like echo chamber or whatever, your own biased belief system, and you don't want to be challenged. It's difficult to go out and challenge those beliefs because you're comfortable. You don't want to have an existential crisis. That's not a comfortable place to be.
Yeah,
And
basically having an entire paradigm shift is a very mental process, you know what I mean? Emotionally and mentally. And it happens to some people never really go through one. And I don't really think that's a good thing, but it is definitely not a comfortable process.
that's also something that you can, church. That's also something that you can help you understand people more, that maybe there are people out there that don't want to go through that. And it is uncomfortable. And maybe you can use your own experience to say, I know it's uncomfortable. I've been there. I was that person, or, you know, I can totally relate to that. And, you know, understanding other people goes a long way, even if you don't agree with them, or you don't end up changing their minds, or you don't, just the fact that you can say, you know what, I get you. And I know you're not coming from a bad place.
That's the thing that I was gonna say too, is like, when it comes to like the fact that like everybody on the right gets lumped into like a group of like fascist, Nazi, racists, right? Like to me, it's not that people have to agree with you guys or that you have to agree with the left, but I do think it is important for people on the left to accept that there's a valid reason why you guys think and feel the way they do. Even if we assumed objectively that reason isn't true, it doesn't mean that there's not a reason that occurs to you that is like convincing you.
Right.
So it's like,
and vice versa.
And vice versa.
Yes, many people on the right truly believe that the left is, and we just got through talking about this a little bit, just emotional.
Right.
You know, we're the logical ones. We have facts, we have reasons behind our arguments and our beliefs that are the truth. And these people, they're just like, do whatever you want, don't feel bad. And, you know, and you don't actually have anything to back up your beliefs. I mean, most of us really do believe that, a lot of it.
And then obviously
and vice versa.
On the left think that exactly the same
exactly.
thing.
So that's basically, when you come down to it, what we're trying to solve here and what we're trying to address. All right. So you want to do the video now? And then we can get back some more discussion later.
Yeah, we'll do the video then. So.
All right. I want to take this opportunity to make an announcement that James and I have another channel. It's called Common Ground, where we do very similar things to what we're doing right here, right now, but on another channel. And we need guests. On Common Ground, we often want to have guests, and we want you to be our guest. So if you
call now.
Right. If you have a particular topic that you're interested in, something that you feel passionate about, whether you be on the right or the left,
or a centrist,
we want to hear from you in the comment section below, and you could be a guest on our show.
Sure, that's fine.
All right.
As Christians, we see Christians following these women, Christians being in support of this, and that is why we're talking about it, because we are trying to wake you people up.
Oh gosh, sorry. I guess I needed to wake up. Now, this particular video was tweeted to me because Paul and Morgan decided to speak out speak out on something very important that needed to be discussed: the Grammys and WAP. They have a problem with the song, obviously, but they also have a problem with the fact that so many people are into and support this type of demonic, satanic, unholy, sinful content.
Okay, how do you feel about Jacqueline? Is she somebody you follow? You mostly agree with her? You like her?
I've given mixed feelings about her. Like overall, I mean, I subscribed to her, which is how I saw this video. And I like her generally speaking. I don't always like 100% agree with her. And sometimes, like I said, she takes a take that I like, even if I'm with her on that same topic, like I may not take that same take on it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like you can agree with somebody for different reasons than why they have the same opinion. You know what I mean? But like I was watching her from long ago, back when she actually did like atheist versus religious type videos. So that's really more what I knew her for when I started watching her. And then obviously, like you can really only talk about that for so long. So she's just moved on to other more general topics. And I've been subscribed to her for like several years, for a pretty long time. Also, she's friends with Blair White, so I've watched videos that she did with Blair White. So yeah, I like her overall. Like I wouldn't say she's like my number one top YouTuber or anything, but I think she's all right. So
okay, I'm not super familiar with her. I've seen her around, you know, I recognize her face.
Yeah,
I'm not subscribed to her or anything.
Yeah.
So I just was wondering how you felt about her. To me, I get why there's a lot of people that do this type of content on YouTube because you know, she's very opinionated, and I don't think she's very uniting, but that's not everybody's thing, you know. Like I
would say she's
find a lot
not
of
as divisive as other YouTubers that talk about this though, because she's not really like a super like, you know, woke culture war kind of person. So at least there's that.
Yeah. All right, push play.
Okay.
Channel youtube.com/Jacqueline Vlogs. Check it out, subscribe. All right, who's ready for that intro? Me? I'm ready.
This is her husband.
Is that her husband?
Yeah.
What's up, guys? How you doing? I'm Paul.
I'm Morgan.
And today's video, how do I say this? So the Grammys rolled around.
I literally didn't watch any of it.
I didn't watch any of it, but I have so much to say about this horrible, horrific, terrible tragedy of content that I didn't watch, but I'm sure it was so bad that I have so much to say on it. All I know is that it was full of sin. Didn't see it, but I'm assuming so.
There was one particular performance.
I do want to ask.
I'm just going to say it was grotesque.
Because you also didn't watch the Grammys and have an opinion about it. So how do you feel about the general principle of deciding that you don't like something if you haven't seen it?
Just based on what I've heard from other people talking about it.
What if they're misrepresenting
I based it on that, on what I heard from other people.
People
like
that
people on the right talking about it. I watched so many videos about it that I actually ended up seeing it, you know, but I also did pretty much hear one side of the argument while I was watching. Yeah.
I think that's the thing. It's like if you only hear about it from people who already have their mind made up about it, then I don't know if it's as fair of a evaluation as watching it yourself, because you know, if you're hearing about what both sides think about it, that's a little bit different. But either way, like for me, like I usually would rather just watch something if one side is telling me that it's bad, because I just want to make up my own mind about it, I guess. So that's me. But to be fair, I didn't watch the Grammys either. So, but I also really don't care that much. So.
I completely and totally watched the Lil Nas X video.
Yeah, no, I sent that to you.
So I watched it from beginning to end. But as far as have I actually sat down and watched WAP, you know, the video, I've seen so many excerpts of it that I feel like I have, but I haven't actually sat down and watched it. And I didn't actually sit down and watch the Grammys version beginning to end. No, but I mean, I feel like I've seen enough of it to develop an opinion based on what it seems to be about, the lyrics I've heard, the read out loud
I know you know the lyrics. I get that. I just mean like in terms of like the Grammy performance, I feel like is being represented as being a lot more vulgar than it actually was. So
I
that's-
could watch the actual
Yeah.
Grammy version, but I've seen a lot of it. So I mean, I've seen them dancing. I've seen their
right. The dancing, like I mean, I get why some of it might be alarming to some people, but also it's really like that's been going on for a long
Oh,
time.
okay.
So
You
it's
can
like not
listen.
really,
My daughter's over here. She's looking at me. I'm like, yes, but she's just
No,
listening.
I'm interested on the topic.
Oh, okay.
You can listen. We can
Yeah.
have an audience.
Yeah.
So all right, I'm gonna keep playing. I was just curious what your thoughts were about that.
Oh, okay. And also, I'd like to give some thoughts on Paul and Morgan.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
They seem really dorky.
They are really dorky. I do not like them. Like I think
You
they
just
have
don't
kind
like
of
them.
harmful messages a lot of the time. Not necessarily like on this, but in general, they're a little bit on the culty side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got that vibe. There
Yeah.
were some things that I do get a little. I find it a little cringe-inducing when people use like phraseology like the father and stuff like that. You know.
Well, they're very heavily religious, but there's also like a bit of backstory. And if you want to watch another Jacqueline video about them, the one I recommend is where she talks about Morgan's past, because Morgan used to be a completely different kind of person. And this guy, Paul, like if you kind of look at the change and like, I don't know, it almost comes off like he's completely like made over her personality for her. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I really like him. Like I think Morgan is she seems nice, but I feel like Paul comes off a bit controlling, if that makes sense. And I'm not really into that.
In traditional Christian relationships, the man is supposed to be like boss number one, right? So
yeah, and it very much does follow that kind of format, but like in a way I don't think it's healthy personally. And it's not my relationship, so it's like I'm not gonna do anything about it. But
I mean, if it
but my
works for
personal
you,
opinion
yeah.
of it, like it just seems like very overbearing. So, you know.
Yeah, I can see why people consider them cringy, and then it just makes me kind of look at the fact that I'm also considered cringy, and I'm like, oh my god, I hope I'm not that kind of cringy. You know?
You're not this kind of cringy.
Okay. I
different
don't
kind of
mind
cringy.
being a certain kind of cringy.
No.
Like, what the fuck does that bitch think she's doing with that puppet or whatever? But yeah, I hope I'm not like this. Ew. Like, I
Thing,
don't
though,
know.
a lot of people
that way
that
about
find
it,
you cringy also talk about how creative and how much effort you put into your content. Like I feel like even people who find you cringy like have positive things to say overall and like can see that you have good intentions. You know what I mean?
Okay. There's different levels of cringe and different.
Yeah, exactly.
types of-
So to me, this is more cringe on a like I don't know, like a less well accepted cringe, if you know what I mean.
All right. Okay. Let's see what
hopefully.
they have to say.
Explicit involving Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B.
And some of you guys might comment and be like, wow, you're talking about this and you haven't even watched it.
Who would say that? I don't know.
Well, from the 23-second GIF thing that we saw,
GIF.
like,
Yeah, no,
that
this is the most offensive part of the video. Leave your opinions in the comments below, but it is not GIF, it is GIF. GIF is a peanut butter. So
Well, hey, to be fair, at first I wasn't sure how to pronounce it either. You know?
I know it's just a very long running internet joke that people who say GIF are just like, and there's been a war about this on the internet for like the entire time the internet has existed. So, well, the entire time that GIFs have existed.
So it's been settled, and if you're still saying GIF,
Not really, but the cool people say GIF and the lame people say GIF.
okay, I'm gonna remember that.
Yeah, there's like a running joke about it. Like because like the guy who invented the format says it's pronounced GIF, but that doesn't matter. It's still wrong because it doesn't sound right. It sounds stupid. And so people are like, yeah, well, I feel like God could come down and like himself and tell me it's pronounced GIF, and I just be like, all right, Jod. So that's how I feel about it. So anyway, yeah. So I can't believe Morgan says GIF. That's just completely unacceptable, and she's probably going to hell for that. So
Okay.
is all we needed to see. And from the few images that we saw as we were doing some research, again, all we needed to see to know this was disgusting.
Jif. She said, Jif, I can't do it. I quit. I quit YouTube. I'm deleting my channel. I'm sorry.
yeah, honestly, me.
Hey, my daughter has an opinion.
I think it's an interesting opinion.
Okay.
Okay, because
We're down.
about that Megan the Stallion,
Uh-huh.
right? She has this video called Body. Have you seen the video Body?
No, I don't actually like watch it. I mean, I've seen WAP, but I'm not like into their music specifically, I guess. So
But she's like amazingly talented.
I can tell
Like,
she's super
extremely
talented.
expressive, like artistically.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't really know Cardi like Cardi B that much, but I think Megan the Stallion is extremely talented, and like what they're doing, if done right, could be extremely provocative artistically.
I feel like it is personally, but I mean that's just my opinion on it. But from what I've seen, especially from like her uprising from like, going to being undiscovered to like where she is now, like she does seem like she's really accelerating in her field and she is very talented. So
Yeah, Megan Thee Stallion, man, that body video, she's an incredible dancer.
I'll have to watch that
Like
then.
the things she can do with her butt cheeks, like I mean,
Yeah.
it's
She can dance, that's for sure.
Yeah,
She does a lot of
she's
really good like dancing in the WAP video too. So
yeah. See, so when I like look at it like that and I don't think like completely about the lyrics, or you do like a little humor when you're thinking about them, and Cardi B has been talked to about it, and she has said like, I'm married, I'm married and I have a child, and I'm kind of talking about this one person, and then like self-expression and creativity and art and stuff, it's really cool to be provocative as long as it's not like degrading.
That's my only problem. Like, and we're going to talk about this in depth later. I don't want to get too much into it, but it's not so much the sexual empowerment and women, should have the right to, demand a high quality of sex or whatever. It's the whole vibe of, it's a prostitution-y vibe,
Yeah. Okay, but here's the thing though. Let me
whores in this house. Go get that money, girl, get that ring, get that car, get that man to pay for this and that. And all you got to do is give up that ass. And, I don't think that's good like for women. It's okay I'm not trying to say you can't say whatever you want to say in this world, but they're rich. They can go around saying this kind of stuff and being artistic and stuff. But then there's a whole generation of young, poor kids that are listening to this.
Yeah. And a lot
and
of
then
they're like, get yours, girls. And, like I was trying to say to Piper earlier, that's not going to attract the quality of man that you want. If you have that, it's anti-man too. It's like not fair to men that you're treating them as objects to get, material goods from.
Okay, I have a few thoughts about that. So first of all, if men like WAP, do you think they would be turned off by women also enjoying the song? Because it is popular among both genders, not necessarily just because men are like lusting after it, but just because like on the artistic level, it's popular among
on the artistic
gay guys like it too. Again, like
that's what I was saying. Like a lot of it's huge in the gay community.
Yeah,
a lot of the gay youth are vibing for that, but a lot of the gay youth, I feel like nowadays, and a lot of the my friends, they are not looking for serious relationships. They are looking for a sugar daddy. They don't want to fall in love. They are jaded. They are scared, So
it really depends, because my community isn't really like that personally. So I don't know what it's like everywhere, but I don't think the majority of gay people watching WAP are watching it or enjoying it because they like specifically hookup culture necessarily. I think they like it on an artistic level and on an empowerment level. And on that topic, a lot of men like see this as empowering because of the same reasons that Grayson was talking about, where they find it attractive if a woman is taking command of the situation in the way that the lyrics are implying in the song.
I think that's an interesting perspective. And I also think on the conservative level, a lot of conservative men are kind of on the same boat, right? Like, hey, I'm going to work. I'm going to buy you a house. I'm going to buy you a car. I'm going to buy you a ring. And you're going to be my, freaking
trophy wife.
Right?
Yes, that was what I was going to say too, is like, okay, so in the bedroom, there is very much like, for a lot of people anyway, like not everybody obviously, but a lot of people kind of like the sort of role-playing aspect of like acting like a hoe in the bedroom specifically, even if you're monogamous and you're not just because it's like hot. You know what I mean? It's like a role playing thing.
I think it's cool. I think it's cool to play that song if that's implied. If, hey, on a guideline, we're not talking about going out and being a whore and but in this situation, in certain situations, I like to be a hoe.
Right.
I've got a WAP over here.
All right, now hopefully.
For the right person.
Right. Exactly.
For my partner.
Yeah, so yeah, that's my thoughts on it. It's like there's more than one way to look at it. So if everyone looked at it the way that you did, Mimzi, and like interpreted it the same way, then it may be true that like it would turn guys off or whatever. But because a lot of people see it a lot of different ways and get a lot of different messages out of it, like I feel like it's not
that deserves to exist.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, I know you want a disclaimer, and that's fine. Disclaimer, fine. I had no problem with that.
I think what it comes down to is that we really need to be good parents to our children.
Absolutely.
100%. I want everybody to be a good parent, but that's not always going to be the case, unfortunately. So that's why sexual education is important in schools.
Yes, it is. I'm being educated on education, what people mean by sexual education too. I'm learning more about that. I really do want to advocate for parents need to step up, teach their kids right from wrong, teach their kids about values and morals, and that might mean different things to different people. But so they have the tools and the mental equipment for when they hear a song like WAP, that they can have their own, their own source of, what they believe in their hearts, and not just grab onto whatever message is out there. If your kid is doing that, then you might not be doing a good job as a parent.
Well, we'll definitely have to have more of this conversation after this video. But
yes, I know we're supposed to be doing a reaction, and we just got off track here.
He's really interested in the rest of the education conversation. That's very big. That's a very big focus on the podcast that we did with Grace.
Yeah, I think that you guys should definitely do something on that.
Oh, we have, like you said, it's a big focus on the podcast show that we did with Grace. And so, definitely watch that. Yeah.
In my ideal world, parents would talk to their children, although they wouldn't tell them like, don't have sex, because that's just going to make your kids not talk to you whenever they want to have sex. Parents would talk to their children and just give them some guidance. Schools would talk to the children to give them another perspective of guidance and proper like curriculum sexual education from a objective standpoint scientifically. And with those tools, when they hear songs like WAP or watch the Grammys or whatever, they would already have the knowledge of like what responsible sex looks like, and therefore not be like, oh, this must be normal. You know what I mean? Like this, they would see it and realize this is a fantasy essentially, which is what it is.
Right. You are great at saying what I was trying to say.
Okay, cool. I'm glad that was
trying to make. Yes.
So, all right, let's play the video then.
All right.
Stuff, it's so vulgar, and yet it would seem that it's so accepted.
And this is the thing that they're the most upset about. Like I said, it's not the content in and of itself they don't like. They personally don't feel like tuning in, which I feel like would be the normal response to anything you're not comfortable seeing. Don't push yourself. I'm not going to judge you for not wanting to see it. But that's not the issue here. The issue is that y'all don't want anybody else to see it either, and because the world around you doesn't have a problem with it like you do, something must be done to stop this.
Okay, but I have a comment
before we get into that. Make sure you subscribe.
We're not gonna get through this video, are we?
No. Isn't that the whole idea of the reaction video though? We're not just supposed to sit here and watch it. Okay.
No.
I'll try to be brief.
Yeah.
I see your point of view there, and my eyes have been opened on this subject to an extent. I'm not saying that I'm full on pro-ho now. I'm not, but
I know.
I am seeing things from another point of view. And I also want to say that you did kind of call me out. Okay. So say I'm saying, and I keep using WAP as an example, but it's really just an example.
Well, and this is the topic of this video. So
this isn't all about, I'm just concentrating on this one song and that's the be all end all of everything. But I am seeing now that like Mimzi, what exactly are you calling for? You're saying that you think that this song is harmful. What are you saying? That it shouldn't exist? It should be banned. It should be censored. And that caused me to stop and think, like, what am I saying? Am I saying that? Am I saying that it should, you should have to show ID to be able to watch it? I mean, what am I saying? So yeah, I agree with Jacqueline on that point now, as I was able to.
I know we had that conversation on Discord, and we had a long talk about it, and I can see the point where that sort of at least shifted your stance, at least on that particular aspect of it. So, and I'm glad to hear that, because me, I'm very anti-censorship, and that across the board, no matter what it is.
Either you're a free speech absolutist or you're not, and I'd like to consider myself that, yes, a free speech absolutist. So I can't just think of it from one-sided point of view, which is what we both do. Right. I mean, on not both you and I necessarily, but both sides, or how many ever sides there are out there. Yeah. Everyone's just looking at things from their own point of view when it comes to free speech. Oh, we have the right to say that. Oh, you're saying something we don't like. We need to ban you. We need to cancel you. And we both do that on either side without even realizing we're doing it, because we're so convinced that our side is the correct one. We don't even see it. So
yeah, I completely agree with you. So,
all right.
I'm glad for that development. So
all right.
We make videos on culture and social issues from a Christian perspective to help you have hope
and be free.
I feel like it's quite the opposite than being free. They seem to want you to be very restricted and limited in what you can do, but that's just me. I know they're talking about their eternal freedom, but agree to disagree.
Do you not want me to interrupt?
No, I'm pausing for you.
You're like, what?
No, sorry, that didn't come out like that. What?
So, I do understand what they're talking about when they say freedom, and how that sounds contradictory to someone who's, doesn't believe in the way that they do. Yeah, it sounds like they're calling for restriction of expression.
I don't think that's necessarily incorrect. Like, I think what you're trying to maybe say is, like, if someone, which this is something I brought up as a thing that exists in the podcast, so everybody should go watch it. But if you have, for example, a sexual addiction or a mental illness that causes you to be irresponsible sexually, then that's not necessarily freedom. It is a compulsion. And a compulsion is not the same as being liberated.
Yes. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And, I'm just I'm just going based on my own personal experiences, that I feel much more freedom now than I did when I was being promiscuous.
Well, and that's why, like, when you say things like you should examine the reasons why you are taking, doing and partaking in these things, like, I think that is a good message. I think you should examine the reasons why. And, you maybe, like, if you're talking to your therapist and you come to the conclusion that you're behaving irresponsible sexually because you have some issues that need to be resolved, then yeah, like, that's fair to say that that's not freedom. But it also is true that you can behave promiscuously without having those issues, and it's just because that's the lifestyle that you want to have. So that's, like, both sides of it, basically. So
okay.
Yeah.
That being said.
Right. But I get why you feel like it's not always liberation.
Right. Okay.
Agree on the eternal aspect of things, I guess.
I don't care what your culture type of dances are. Yeah, all cultures have different things unique to that culture. Mm-hmm. Sure. If it's ungodly, if it's unwholesome.
It doesn't matter what culture it's coming from. If it's unwholesome, if it's ungodly, if it is not glorifying the Lord, if you are making people lust after you, it's not good.
Personally, I enjoy WAP. That was the song of my bachelorette party. I actually had it play once at my reception at my wedding, and all my bridesmaids and all my girls had a great time. It was a blast. None of us felt less after listening to it, and this whole culture thing that they're bringing up made me really uncomfortable throughout their video. They talk about how they had an issue before with Shakira and some of the stuff that she's done and some of her performances, and J-Lo, and they just thought it was so horrible, and they made a video about it, right? Well, a lot of people had an issue with that video, and they said that it was because they weren't accepting of different cultural differences when it comes to dance, and they talk in this video as though WAP has some kind of connection to Black culture, and they won't stop talking about it. And in my head, I'm just like, no.
You see a strong emphasis on, wow, Paul and Morgan, you guys, another comment said you're closed-minded.
Culture? Well, here's the thing. And this isn't meant to sound controversial, but it is true that often Black culture has more of an emphasis on sexuality than I feel like white culture does. Mm-hmm. And I'm not exactly sure what the specific reason is. I know that it's probably got at least something to do with imperialism that we were talking about before. But also, and again, this isn't meant to sound controversial, it's just scientifically true. But Black people can have higher levels of testosterone than white people, just chemically speaking. So like this often causes their women to have like a higher sex drive, which again, this isn't meant to be as like a judgment or like a racist type argument. Like it's literally just like something that
Facts.
has shown up in science that they
Yeah,
just have a
scientific
higher
facts.
libido.
We don't need to shy away from those. I don't like it when people
Right.
shy away
Yeah,
from
but
those.
facts don't care about your feelings as been
Yeah,
stereotyped.
absolutely. Yes.
But like, and it's not a bad thing. Like I'm not saying this is an admonishment or like saying that that's inferior in any way. Like
There's
it's just
nothing wrong with acknowledging differences in the sexes or in nationalities or whatever. There's nothing wrong.
Right. Yeah, so it's just like a lot of women in Black culture have a higher libido, which is completely fine, and it's totally okay for them to have a culture that is different because of that specifically. You know what I mean?
My daughter has something to say here.
Yeah.
Interrupting. What would you like to say? Get closer. The mic's got to be able to hear you because your opinion's valuable.
I think culturally there's a difference as well. You know, my son's being raised in a Greek household, and they're very open sexually, more open with nudity, provocative speech, sexuality in the family, and connect like open, you know, like kissing, naked in front of each other. They're more open. And same thing with my girlfriend who's Guatemalan. Her and her mom talk about extreme details in sex. They talk about sexual relationships. They're they'll sleep in the bed with their family members. They're culturally more open-minded and more comfortable with expressing themselves sexually and communicating sexually amongst relatives, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Let alone with their community.
Tabitha wants to adopt this because she's always telling me way too much information.
Yeah, I want to sit on her lap. I want to give her kisses. You know, like I'm very attracted to that culture. You know, I want to feel comfortable. You know, I want to feel connected. I want to be open with my trusted, loved, you know, members of my family and my friends, close friends as well. I like to kiss them real close to their mouth, if not on their mouth, and it's not sexual for me.
Right. Yeah, no, and that's completely valid. And like, this is another thing that we were talking about in the podcast about European cultures being way more sexually, like, you know, open, like you said. Like basically, like it's not that they're like more promiscuous than us. It's just that they talk about it more and they like display it more and they don't really have a problem with it. It's not like stigmatized or seen as immoral or anything. Like, and I'm not saying that you see sex as immoral, but I mean, there are a lot of really heavily Christian communities that do see it as like kind of immoral in a sense, like even if it's not necessarily like just being a hoe, but like just anything, like any sex out of wedlock, for example. And like I said, Europe is a lot more secular as well, so there's that. But yeah, like it's very true that there's different cultures, and Black culture is a lot more open sexually, I feel like, than some white cultures, not all, because there's a lot of them, obviously. So yeah,
and I think there's
but anyway, that's my thoughts on that. Did you have thoughts on that, Mimzi?
Intimacy and romance, rather than sex.
Right.
I can be extremely intimate and romantic with a person and not be ready or interested in having sex, or that it will always lead to sex, even if I've had sex with that person prior, you know?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And that's why it's always important for like people to never assume consent. Like just because you had sex with a guy once doesn't mean that he's entitled to have sex with you every single time he wants to, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Oh. Okay, love you.
I know my kids never had to worry about me molesting them. It was always me that had to worry about them.
Oh, I see. Don't worry about your kids molesting you. Is that what you're saying?
It's like
That's funny. All right, should we play the video?
Yes.
Okay.
Women should never be sexualized by other people and yourself. I don't think that you should sexualize yourself. If you don't want to be looked at like a sex symbol, like a thing.
Well, before they get into the argument of how you look at people, I think it's kind of a silly statement to say that you should literally never be sexualized. How would you ever have sex if you were never sexualized?
Right. That's taking it to extreme. But in the spirit of, you know, trying to understand both sides or the various sides of people's, you know, arguments. I understand what they're saying. I'm not.
I don't. So if you want to explain to me what you think she means by that, I'm willing to hear it.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't know if I want to pick apart this exact part, but in general, the general vibe, like I support it's a because it's a religious, they're coming up from it as a religious, from a religious point of view.
Yeah.
And that's the way they believe, that's the way they were raised. And they believe it's sinful. And society is pushing sin, and accepting sin, which is bringing our society further away from godliness. Like, can you not like understand where they're coming from that point of view, even if you don't agree?
Well, that's the thing that
it's
makes
it's one of the personal
religion.
experience things that's forming their views.
Yeah, I know. And so, like, you remember in the last video that we did together, we were talking about like Islam and Sharia law and stuff like that.
Mhm.
To me, this is as problematic as that. It's maybe not as dangerous, just because like they don't have the freedom to. They don't have a theocracy in our country, essentially. I mean, they might as well, almost, just because all politicians are Christian. But anyway, legally, they don't have a theocracy in the country. But if they did, would that mean that they would be carrying out the same things that they used to do in like the Dark Ages, where you would stone people to death if they like were having sex or something like that? Like, it's the same argument that they're making. Like, this is what I mean when I say, like, they say just because this thing is part of this other person's culture doesn't mean we can't criticize it. Well, just because this is part of your religion doesn't mean we can't criticize it. You know what I mean?
Right. I'm not saying we can't criticize it, but I'm also not saying that they
I get why it
feel
offends
this way and to be concerned about it because of their own particular perspective, their particular experiences, and their point of view. I can't understand why the religious right is upset by what they see around them. I can't.
Well, yeah, so can I. But that's the issue.
That's all I was getting at, really. Like,
you know what I mean?
How
it's
they
like
might feel that way.
Sorry, what?
I said that's really what I was getting at. Like, just to say, can you see how they might feel that way based on their perspective?
Yeah, I know why they feel that way, because I was in the same situation, like I told you before. Like, I was put in the situation of thinking that these things were evil and sinful and wrong and blah, blah, blah. And I'm glad that I'm not anymore, but this is like what makes me wish that maybe someday in the distant future religion would stop existing, because I feel like it breeds these kinds of fears and uncomfortable feelings when it doesn't need to be. Like, they don't need to be afraid of like all of America going to hell or whatever, you know what I mean? So it makes me sad that they are, in a way, if that makes sense. Like, but yeah, like
millions and billions of Christians have studied the Bible and they believe this with all of their heart. What makes us think that we're the ones who are right and they're the ones who are wrong?
Well, I'm an atheist, so I can give you a whole religious debate.
Okay, well, we're going way off topic here.
Yeah, that would be a completely different debate.
I mean, I guess
let me just put it this way. I'm quite.
They think that where you or people that don't believe are the ones who are wrong.
I know, but that's my
daughter
point.
Here's a Christian. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I'm always so confused when I hear like some things that Christians have to say, because I don't know what Bible they're reading. It doesn't say that in the Bible.
There's always a point in the Bible that can back up almost anything that you want to say, because it's got so many contradictions in it.
Huh?
I said there's always a point in the Bible that can back up.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of have to, eat up the good stuff and
take what you want. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if that's real Christianity.
In the Bible, it says there's no condemnation between a man and a woman, right? There's no condemnation in a marriage. And that you're supposed to like worship your wife. If you read the Songs of Solomon, he worships this woman like a tower, like an ivory tower. He talks about her breasts multiple times.
Nice.
This is lust.
I didn't know the Bible got that hot.
Oh yeah, it's really hot. Yeah. So the Songs of Solomon are raunchy, and it's all about romance. It's all about love of a woman, her body. It takes apart her piece by piece and worships her like a tower, like an ivory tower. He talks about her neck, her hair, the color of her skin. It's very sexual, and there's a lot of sexuality in the Bible. They talk about having multiple wives in the Bible.
Oh yeah, that's definitely like a well-known thing too.
Yeah, so I'm like, what part of the Bible are they talking about? Where
you're talking about the other part that says that it's bad and a sin.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't even say that. It doesn't even say that. So I'm a Christian. I think of myself as a follower of Jesus Christ. And a lot of people thought Jesus Christ was a drunkard and a sinner himself because he hung out with lepers, alcoholics,
and prostitutes.
collectors,
He hung out with prostitutes.
He had a strong relationship with Mary Magdalene.
Yep.
And had his feet washed with the hair, and the myrrh, the oils of a prostitute, because she appreciated him so much for loving her without judgment, which is the whole thing that brought me to Christianity in the first place, was that I was loved unconditionally while I was still a sinner. And by the grace of God, I've experienced salvation, not because of anything that I've done, because I'm a human being and all I do is, it's selfish. I'm selfish at the end of the day, but I'm loved unconditionally, regardless of what I do.
I can see how that would benefit you, yeah.
And I think because of people like my daughter over here that you can't see, that's why I don't exactly share your point of view when you're saying that you wish that religion and Christianity didn't exist, because I think that for so many people, it is that thing that brought them from a dark place and helped them to become a better person. And is that something that they can use?
Well, I don't feel like it should not exist without replacement, I guess. So like in my perfect world, like it wouldn't be necessary for people to have those feelings, I guess. I'm not saying I have anything against people being religious, obviously. Like I want everybody to be whatever they are. And I'm completely pro free speech and freedom and anti-censorship. So like I'm not saying anything like that. But like in my ideal world, you would be able to get those messages regardless, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so. And it does bother me as a believer, people who say things, make prejudice and judgment and criticize other people in Jesus' name, because in the Bible it says when you go to the other side and you stand before God and you say, I did all this works in your name, he's going to turn away from you and say he never knew you.
Yeah, I think Jesus is rad, honestly.
They're doing it as Christians, but they're doing it with their own agenda.
Exactly. And well, a lot of people do read it from the lens of like, well, I can use this to justify my opinion on this or that or whatever, instead of trying to take it at face value, I guess.
Yeah, because God is love. God is connection. He wants us all united. He wants us to turn our cheek and give our last to our enemy. He's not about judgment and criticism and rejection.
Yeah, he was pretty much the opposite of those things.
The opposite. Yeah, and that's what I love. I go for the love. I'm a New Testament Christian,
Well, yeah, most people are these days. I mean, not everybody. Like these two probably aren't.
These are like fire and brimstone, and I think they're lying through their teeth, because there's also psychology and psychoanalysis, and if you look at the defense of these people, it's based on their own shame, their own guilt.
Oh yeah, that's another thing that we were kind of talking about.
Shame and regret. They've done a lot of things that they're not proud of and that they're not willing to own up to, but. Thank God, I have read the Bible and it tells me that nobody is greater or lesser, and the spirit, the weak are going to be the first to get into heaven. And I'm weak, I'm sick. I need a doctor, I need a hospital. I'm not the type that's going to stand before you and say like, this is how you need to do it. Or else you're sinning and you're going to burn in a, fiery pit for all eternity. I get on my knees and I put up my hands and I say, thank you, God, for another day,
Yeah,
Let me be a little more like you and a little less like me.
I'm glad that there are a lot of positive messages that you can take out of the Bible. Like, I'm not saying the Bible is bad. I think everybody should read it.
It's vocabulary, whatever gets you through the day. I also read the big book. There's a lot of good stuff in there,
Right. Yeah. So, I think Jesus.
I think Harry Potter's pretty good too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing about like art and literature and music and all of these things.
Yes.
You can get whatever message out of it like speaks to you.
Yeah.
So,
Pieces of Me by Jewel used to be my Bible.
Right.
Okay.
So, all right. I'm going to play the video only because I can't be here forever because I have stuff to do today.
I know, me too. And I think that her point of view has been very valuable.
It's very valuable for sure. So
to lust over, then you probably shouldn't be doing certain things.
This is the part in their video that made me feel like, okay, yes, I want to do a response. There is so much wrong with the logic behind this. First of all, I don't think Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion had any issue at all with this topic or their portrayal of this topic being sexualized. That's kind of the point. If you don't like it, that's fine. You don't have to, but me and all my girlfriends love dancing to it. The song in and of itself is of a very sexual nature. The way that they portray it is of a sexual nature. I think the intent is for that to be realized. No one's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're sexualizing WAP. But the real issue behind what she's saying here is that women should not ever be sexualized by other people or sexualize themselves in any kind of way. And my response to that is, well, don't you understand how subjective that is? I mean, you say, hold on, let me find it.
If you don't want to be looked at like a sex symbol, like a thing to lust over, then you probably shouldn't be doing certain things.
Morgan, you have done quite enough throughout your internet history that could be viewed as sexualized by people depending on their viewpoint or where they are in the world. If you're of the Muslim faith, looking at you with your hair out showing, the fact that you have any makeup on at all would be viewed as basically the same level as how you're viewing other people right now. It would be like, well, if you don't want to be sexualized, why do you have your hair out? Why are you wearing makeup? Why is your shirt tight? You're basically asking for it at this point, right? This is a very scary sentiment to put out into the world, that if a woman dresses a certain way, acts a certain way, does a certain thing, that they are basically asking to be viewed as a sexual object. I'm sorry, but no, the responsibility is on the other person. If I'm walking down the
Yeah, I know you had opinions about that before.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it brief. But yeah, I do think that you have to, it is never okay to attack somebody, touch somebody, grab somebody, because of the way that they're dressed.
Right.
But you have to accept some sort of personal responsibility for the way that you present yourself to the world. I mean, if you don't, okay, obviously they do want to be seen as sexual objects, obviously, duh. Right. But if you don't want to be seen as a sexual object, if you are of the mindset of maybe a little bit more of a feminist mindset or whatever, that's where I can't really this very, very contradictory. Like I am not a sexual object. I'm an autonomous person of equal value, to all men and all this. And then, but then it's a feminist statement to go around with your tits hanging out and stuff. I'm having a little bit of trouble.
Okay, well, let me touch on that for a second. Hang on. So, well, first of all, I don't think that Jacqueline is saying that like you have absolutely no responsibility for how you present yourself to the world, because that's like a whole different statement. But like obviously you have responsibility for how you present yourself to the world. Like you wouldn't go into the office, like you were talking about, if you dress like a homeless person, people aren't going to see you as the CEO. So like you wouldn't go to work dressed badly if you have a professional job, for example. Like most people wouldn't do that. However, like there's a difference between saying like, if you don't want to be seen as if you don't want to be sexualized, then it doesn't make sense to wear things that are revealing. I can see, or at least things that look, because again, like when we were talking about like nudist colonies before, like that doesn't mean you want to be sexualized. But if you're wearing things that are like intentionally provocative, then like it doesn't make sense to say you don't want to be sexualized. However, there's a difference between being sexualized and not being seen as equal to men because you're wearing things that are revealing. Like I don't understand why that would be a conclusion to make, like, because
they're saying I want you to see me in the same way that you would see any other person, even a man. I want you to see me for my mind, but men don't, you're not like, and then you go around with it all hanging out and you're like, well,
here's the thing, like if a woman is wearing clothes
I'm up here, like my brain is right here, but a man is, you might be paying more attention to his brain because all of his junk isn't hanging out.
I don't know. I don't agree with that, to be honest with you. I think you can express yourself in clothing that is provocative without implying that you don't have a brain or that you're not equal to men. Like I don't agree with the sentiment that just because you're wearing revealing clothes, you're giving the impression that you're not equal to men. Like I don't see why that would be a problem. I guess.
That you want to be seen as not a sexual object, basically.
Yeah, I agree with, like, if you don't want to be sexualized, then it's not a great idea to wear clothes that are sexy. like I can understand that point of view. But what she's saying is that when a man looks at a woman and finds her sexually attractive, it's not entirely her fault either. Like it's also like the person looking at her is going to find her attractive. Like that's also on them too. So yeah, like I mean, in terms of that, like responsibility goes both ways. I just don't agree with the statement that like if you're wearing sexy clothes, that means you're somehow inferior to men or you aren't smart. Like that to me, those are unrelated things. You can be both smart and sexy, you know?
I'm not saying that if you're sexy, that means you're not smart. I'm just saying if you don't want to be seen, you don't want people thinking sexual things about you, then you need to be responsible about keeping your
I think if you don't want people thinking sexual things about you
to them, and that needs to be a part of a personal responsibility kind of thing, like,
sure. I mean, I guess
you want to be seen a certain way, then present yourself a certain way. And you can't blame the other people for thinking that if you're walking down the street in a miniskirt, a tube top with it all hanging out, that you are looking for some sexual attention. You can't just completely blame the person that's giving it to you because you've presented yourself in a certain way.
I mean, I guess it depends on the context too. Like if you are like going to a club and you're dressed like that, I mean, it's probably reasonable to assume that you're looking for some sexual attention in some manner because you're in an environment that also encourages things like that. If you're just walking on the street, like, you may not be doing it to get like catcalled. You might be doing it to get like, I don't know, because you just like the way it looks and you like feeling good about yourself or whatever.
Right.
However, you can't assume that people aren't going to think sexual thoughts about you. That's, I feel like maybe what you're getting at, because you can't be the thought police. Like people are going to think sexual thoughts about you if you
think sexual thoughts regardless, no matter what you're wearing.
True. That's the other thing too, is like, that's another argument people often make is like, even if you dress completely modestly, like men might still sexualize you. So it's not entirely your fault if men sexualize.
And that's the point that Jacqueline's making, that Morgan in certain
certain cultures,
even that tight shirt that she's wearing might be for having her hair out might be considered, but we're not talking about that culture. We're talking about America here. So that
there are people in America that are Muslim.
It was a little irrelevant, that point that she was trying
to
make.
Not necessarily. There's people in America that are Muslim and have that opinion.
Yeah, I can go into the gas station and people feel shocked.
Yeah,
I know, because when I used to teach driving lessons, I had some Muslim students, and like they had to work hijabs. They didn't have their hair out at all. So it's not completely irrelevant. It's also like, it is hypocrite, even if like you can't just, we're on the internet, so you're not just talking about America at that point. You know what I mean? So I don't know. That's my view on it.
I guess so, but I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll play it then.
Okay. Yeah.
Street and someone thinks that my shirt's too low cut, I'm not asking for them to touch me or say anything inappropriate to me or anything. And if they behave in a way that is not okay, that is on them, not on me. This idea that you're putting out there that women shall not behave in any kind of way in case a man might lust after her is super dangerous and something that I thought we could have done away with a long time ago. And if you want to sexualize yourself in any kind of way, that also doesn't give anybody else permission to treat you in a way that is inappropriate. That's why we have things like consent. Putting all of the responsibility on a woman to dress and act a certain way because somebody else can't control themselves is ridiculous. Now let's take a few steps back into WAP. I don't think that it's the same thing. We're talking about a song, we're talking about a dance. You're allowed to watch that dance. You're allowed to like that dance. You're allowed to appreciate that someone is expressing their sexuality on stage and applaud them or get upset and not watch it. I don't care. You do you. That still doesn't give anybody permission to act on that in a way that is inappropriate. I think putting this idea out into the world that the responsibility is on a woman to have other people control their urges is so frustrating and lends itself to so many problems we're still facing in the world today that I'm disappointed in you, Morgan, as a woman for not realizing that.
Guys, I think like my number one goal in this video and in talking to you all is like, if you are a believer, if you are in the Word, you cannot be walking with God and watching that show, watching that performance and be totally okay with that and totally okay with God's Word. It doesn't work. It doesn't line up.
And she said it was so, and so it was. This is all according to the gospel of Morgan. Let's just say in a hypothetical world, for the sake of argument, that there is a God. I don't think Morgan is just the beacon of truth coming from God to tell people how they need to be a proper Christian. It's kind of like the no true Scotsman fallacy. You weren't a true Christian unless you do X, Y, Z type of thing. If you fall away from the faith, you were never really a Christian. I get told that all the time. And then within Christianity, you have some people being a certain way, some people being a different way, and they don't get along because you're not the right type of Christian, and only A, C, and E types of Christianity get into heaven. And it's just a very weird, divisive type of thing because so many people like Morgan think they have the answer. It's frustrating for me to see this because...
Do you see that issue in terms of like the different Christian denominations?
Yeah, I'm also agreeing with what she's saying about, I don't think anybody can claim they have the answer. That's not your place.
So,
right. Yeah. She, as far as the A, B, C, D type of Christian, I wonder which one she is.
Yeah, you're right.
Definitely had different types for sure.
Yeah.
She's at least got to be the F type of Christian, I guess.
F type of Christian.
Spiritual.
I'm
non-denominational.
Well, there's like Episcopalian. Those are pretty laid back, aren't they?
Yeah, maybe you should look into identifying as an Episcopalian.
Yeah, everyone I know that's an Episcopalian is super chill.
I'm a Christian. I just say I'm a follower of Jesus Christ because.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Honestly, I can see that.
Yeah, I like that. You know, I like if can I say something?
Yeah, you can say something.
Go ahead.
Just a little
I
bit
paused it for
closer
you.
to the mic.
Okay. You know, as far as like the education aspect and what you were saying earlier about if there was a way to learn it right that was like non-religious.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm so appreciative is, you know, if my mom wasn't raised, right? So if my mom wasn't raised by her mother and I wasn't raised by my mother because she didn't have the information to give me, right, to educate me, I got this book, you know, when I was incarcerated, and it kind of told me guidelines for living. It gave me directions, right, that I didn't know who to follow, right? We're looking for a mentor as, you know, a young person or an older young person like I was at 26 when I, you know, I was 25 when I first started reading the Bible, and 26 when I got sober. I needed direction, you know, I needed mentorship. I needed someone to follow, somebody's life to be presented before me. I can say, okay, you know, what do I do in a situation of living and having this? And I started reading Romans, and it was talking about this war inside of me. You know, and when I got into that, it changed my perspective.
Yeah. And let me be clear. Like, I think the Bible it should exist. I think it should exist. I think it has benefited a lot of people. I don't think everything in it is great, obviously, but it has it's written by a bunch of different people. So you're seeing a lot of different perspectives. So I think there's a lot of parts in it that are extremely useful. And ultimately, it's like an important historical document in a sense. And there's obviously going to be wisdom that is passed down through it. So like when I say things like, you know, about my ideal world, like you would still have these books that have these philosophies in them, because those are important.
You think about it as philosophy, you know, it's like it's an education and it's wisdom.
Right.
You know?
And that's completely like, we should always have literature that passes wisdom down. Like, I think that's part of being human. You know what I mean? Is like recording our discoveries as we go through life. Right. And other people can benefit from that. So
absolutely.
I'm glad we brought this up because I feel the same way about the Bible. I think there's a lot of wisdom in it.
Yeah. And, you know, like the book my mom's recently been reading is on Stoicism, you know, and I think it's important to have principles. And in the Bible, it talks about the fruits of the Spirit. It talks about love. It talks about discipline, self-control, you know, focusing on things that are honest,
right,
you know, and kind and tolerant. And, you know, if we all just kind of took that view, I think the world would be a better place. But of course, there's always going to be people out there, you know, mutilating any book or any vocabulary to their own agenda and harming other people and self-harm as well, you know, because there's no peace. And that's the goal, you know, is like spiritual growth and peace on earth, you know, inner peace.
Yeah.
Serenity.
Sure. I do think, like I said, I think philosophical books, and to me, I would put the Bible in that category as a philosophical book, are important, but they can be read by people who will, you know, take it to different places. That's just going to be how it is, I guess. Like it kind of, I feel like people have a predisposition to like what they want to get out of something, whether they want it to be inner peace or judgment on other people, or, you know, something like And I don't
Throw
necessarily
it
blame
to
you.
you.
And
Smack you in
Paul
the
and
face
Morgan
with it.
seem to want to get judgment out of it,
Right,
right?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're not coming from a place of love, and I think they need therapy.
I agree with you 100% on that.
I think I should get their number and I should sit them down and talk to them.
Yeah, that'd be great. You should leave them a comment on their YouTube if you
Like,
can,
hey
I guess.
guys, I need to know what's going on. How do you really feel? What's going on inside? What's the
Right.
turmoil about?
All right.
To learn to love yourself, because if you don't love yourself, you can't love anybody else.
Exactly. And also no, you can't expect love from other people if you don't love yourself either. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to get what you give in life.
A lot of people out there.
you
that-
what?
She said you get what you give.
Yeah, you get what you give completely.
Progressive Christians, and I think they are doing amazing things for the world because they're allowing belief and
She's talking about
open-mindedness
this
to
exact
kind
thing
of
right
live in the same world together. And while there may still be some cognitive dissonance in there for me that I'm not able to get over, it doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt me. What it does do is it brings Christians into the fold that are okay with homosexuality, that don't oppress women, that are just more open-minded in general, and it makes the environment of Christianity a lot less oppressive. My main concern is that channels like this, channels like Girl Defined, channels that just talk about how you should or shouldn't act, get out there and make people who are religious feel guilt, change the way they live their life in a way that takes away from their life. Which makes me so sad because, in my opinion, we only have one chance. We only have one life to live. And so many people wait to live until they die. Politics, let's make it law, because our nation shouldn't do this and our nation shouldn't do that. To be honest, this type of thing, this mentality scares me, that people who are religious think they have any kind of say in what the rest of the
Yeah, I
freaking
guess I do have
country
something to
does,
say
the
right
rest
here.
of the world.
You what?
I said I think I do have something to say right here.
Okay.
But yeah, that is something that, like, I guess kind of covered it a little bit earlier, but I just kind of wanted to reiterate that yeah, this is America, First Amendment. It's I know that the Christian conservatives' point of view is that they more want to mandate their religion and have that be like the law in America. And I just want to come out as saying that that's not me.
Yeah, and I know that's not you, and I'm glad. Obviously, I don't like. I already know that you. I assumed that you felt that way, but I'm glad to hear you say it because I do think it's important for like people on the right to acknowledge that you can be on the right without thinking that you should have Christian mandated laws. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, I think that's dangerous and it's a violation of the First Amendment. And like, not everybody in this country is Christian. We have freedom of the religion.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, completely agree on that, obviously, but.
Sometimes, like, why don't you just do you? How about that for once? Just do you.
And so, this is the type of stuff that in the midst of cancel culture should get canceled. And I'm not a fan of cancel culture, but as a society, we should say, no, I will not let that.
What?
Hypocrite.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think, what Jacqueline says as well.
Yeah,
so.
that's what I was talking about, though, that we so often don't see it from the other side because we're so convinced we're right that we don't see it the same way. Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing is, like, to me, my integrity, that's what that means is, like, I don't think that these people should be canceling this song because they think it's morally wrong, just the same way that I don't think people on the left should be canceling this TV show or this episode of this show because something was said in it that they think is morally wrong because it was like, you know, an offensive off-color joke or something like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's like the same thing.
Nor should Paul and Morgan be canceled.
Right. No, of course not. I mean, they're allowed to express themselves. We're allowed to disagree with them, so.
My home. I will not let my kids be exposed to this type of stuff. I will not be exposed to it. That is the stuff that should draw outrage.
We hate cancel culture. Let's be real here. We totally hate cancel culture. But you know what? If it worked in our favor and if it canceled somebody or something we didn't like, then hooray!
Paul and I are firmly in this place of believing that you are going down a very dangerous path if you are beginning to or have been accepting things like WAP and Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion and the way they perform as acceptable, as beautiful, as progressive, anything other than sinful, dark, evil, demonic.
Demonic, guys.
Like, we're coming to you all humble. We're coming to the Lord with humility and saying, God, you speak through us in these videos.
Ugh. Ugh, the fake humility pisses me off so much, and I see this so often. This is so typical. So much of what they do is so typical. I don't like it. It's the, oh, we're humble. We're not judgmental. We are just servants to the Lord, and He's speaking through us. So these words that we're saying that might be offensive or hurtful to some, or maybe it seems like super judgmental, you know, it's not us. It's the Lord.
What do you think about like the idea that some Christians that are like this, that are judgmental, like use that as an excuse essentially to be able to give their admonishment towards people by claiming that it's like coming from God or whatever?
I don't. How do I feel about that? I think everybody has the right to hear their opinion, and basically, obviously, we both feel that way. They can believe that, they can think that. Are you asking like, how do I feel about them saying it to their face? And
no, it's more like they're
that,
removing responsibility from themselves for having that judgment and that opinion of other people by saying that like God's speaking through them essentially. So they're allowed to say anything they want to people because God's speaking through them. They don't have to take responsibility for that fact that they are saying something judgmental to someone else.
I'm all about personal responsibility. Obviously, like
Right.
I'm big on that. So yeah, they need to take responsibility for the things that they say to people and how they're coming off, how they're portraying themselves, how they might be damaging to other people. I don't know. Not really sure how to answer that question.
I mean, I guess that was an answer. You know, I was just curious. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you answered my question.
All right.
I mean, I agree with you also. So.
Yeah, I mean, but then again, I mean, on the other hand, they do have the right to say what they want to say.
Yeah, they can say whatever they want to say.
Yeah, you can't say, oh, I know I'm not on board with the people that say words are violence. You're not allowed to tell people anything that's going to hurt their feelings because then they're going to, go kill themselves and it'll be your fault or whatever the argument that comes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think you should like harass people and whatnot, but like,
yeah.
The
I mean,
ultimate...
if they do have that opinion and they did base it on their belief system and they feel the need to talk to people and tell them that based on their belief system, they're living their lives in, the wrong way. And they believe that teaching Jesus teachings, the Bible teaching, they can tell people that.
Yeah, they can tell people. I just want them to take responsibility for what they're saying, which again, like they don't have to, like I can't make them, but as exercising my freedom of speech, I think that they are deflecting responsibility and that's disingenuous. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Speaking through us. We're just humble. We don't pass judgment. We don't think we're personally better than anybody else, even though we totally do. It's not us. It's the Lord.
That's their own personal interpretation of the Lord, and they need to take responsibility for their own personal interpretation. Yeah,
but that's the thing is like a lot of these people who have the because not all Christians are like this, but there are many Christians who think that their denomination is the only one that's true, and so their interpretation is the only one that's true as well. So
and that's basically what kind of we're all doing, these days, thinking that our interpretation is the true one. Therefore we have the authority to impose our beliefs on other people and not feel any personal responsibility for it. Even non-religious people are doing that these days.
Well, and also we don't feel any need to consider a different point of view either because we assume
because as far as we're concerned, it's settled.
Right, exactly.
But maybe it's really not.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful thing to walk with the Father.
Oh God,
that was really creepy. That was what I was talking about.
Yeah, that was a little creepy.
It's a beautiful thing to be able to walk with the Father.
And for those of you who are saying you want to experience the Lord, you want to know what God has in store for you, you want to know what it looks like to walk with God daily, like He is available to you. He is waiting for you. He is ready to pour life and love and freedom and hope into your life.
All you have to do is take Paul and Morgan's word for gospel. All you have to do is not listen to what.
All right. So all that being said, I actually like what she said at the very end there. I don't know if we're going to play that part because it's,
right.
But what she said at the end there was, if you don't like it, don't look at it. Okay.
And also don't do it. Like if you
don't
think
do
that,
it, right? If you're not interested in the type of lifestyle, then that's fine too. And I just want to be able to say that just because WAP or how, anything related to that type of subject exists and should be allowed to exist, and people can interpret it in their own ways and get what they want from it. If you don't like what you're getting out of it, you don't like the message, it's not resonating with you, you don't feel good about it for whatever reason, then it is perfectly okay that you don't listen to it, you don't engage with it, that you talk to your children about it and why you don't think that it's appropriate or good for them or good for others or whatever it is. That's okay. It does have the right to exist, but it's okay not to engage in certain behaviors that you don't like. And I wanted to say that too.
Yeah. Well, I actually did want to ask too, like now that we've rewatched it like together and had conversations about a lot of these topics before then, do you feel like your position towards Jacqueline's side of this has shifted?
Well, I have watched that video before. I know reaction videos are supposed to be like spontaneous or whatever. I guess this is not as much of a reaction video as it is a response video because of that. But I guess watching it the second time around, that I was able to, instead of being defensive against her side, because at first I was like, this bitch is pissing me off, like she's she's being very judgmental. I wasn't on the side of Paula Morgan either. I thought ridiculous as well, but I thought, well, she's so judgmental here. But upon listening to her again, I can see her points. Maybe her style is not, my style or whatever. Maybe, but that's that has the right to exist as well. Snarkiness, cattiness it's okay to watch, and I don't think it's very uniting or whatever. But beside the point. Right. So it's upon watching her again, I'm like, okay, yes, I see her point of view, which is what we're all about. So
exactly. Yeah. I was just curious because it did seem like there was less that I feel like you took contention with. I mean, like, we had our conversations about how we interpret maybe things like how you dress and what effect that has on the people around you and things like that. And there's nuance there, obviously, which I think we agree on when you get down to the details. Like, excuse me, Kat, do you mind? So anyway, so is there more that you wanted to say on the topic? I think there was, right?
On this entire topic or just on what I heard from her?
On the topic of sexual liberation, sexual empowerment, and or being a hoe.
Sure. I do have a little list over here that I want to look through and make sure that I'm not leaving this discussion going, Yeah.
This is the last chance you get, so.
Right. This is it. We're not going to be doing any more videos on this topic. We don't want to just keep on, doing the same shit. So, I really did I don't know how many people who are watching right now know my history and where I'm coming from. But I did want to, talk a little bit more about the fact that James and I come from two different points of view due to the fact of our personal experiences.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people have watched other videos that I've done or whatever. So I just want to tell people that my personal experience is that I was a prostitute for, I'll say, the better part of 30 years. It wasn't the entire 30 years, but probably if you added it up, 20 years of that 30 years, I was a prostitute. Maybe I was just doing hand jobs. Maybe I was doing full service. I went back and forth with that. But yeah, I have a lot of personal experience with this. And also a lot of people might say, oh, well, just because you had a bad experience, did I have a bad experience? I had the experience. Like, was I ever attacked, raped? Did I have a pimp that beat me? No, I was always entrepreneurial. I was always my own boss. I actually had massage parlors on a couple of different occasions where I had other girls that worked for me. I always thought of myself as more of a professional person. I was a streetwalker when I was younger. But as I got older, I started going online and advertising in a more, presenting myself in a more professional way. I've never really been attacked, I've never had any what you would call a bad experience with it.
No, I think the bad experiences, I guess, that you did have is just that you didn't like how it affected your life. Right. Not that you got attacked or something. And I will say that even though I come from a completely different background, my mother, her background is very similar to yours. She just never really had the retribution that you had, I guess. So it's not that I don't see that side as well, because I had negative impacts in my life because of the way that my mother was, although it's more than just the lifestyle. It's also the fact that she's extremely mentally ill, which is kind of goes back into what I'm saying about like, if you are doing these things because you are mentally ill, then you absolutely should examine if that lifestyle is healthy for you. It's probably not. So yeah, I also want to say that I can see it from that angle for those reasons, even though I never participated, and nobody in my generation that I know personally. I know you probably know some younger people that, you know, are into WAP, and maybe they are like what you're describing, but like all of my friends are like completely healthy, like maybe not completely healthy, like they'll have like depression and anxiety, but like, you know, they're not like, their lives aren't in shambles, you know, they'll have jobs and money.
I found that actually really interesting. That we can both see that our personal experiences, like I was like, well, how can you not see what I see? How can, you know, and then you're probably thinking the same thing. Oh my God, how could she? Because our personal experiences are so very different, and not just our personal experience, but our extended experience. Like you're saying that you wrote to me or whatever. We chat back and forth through, you know.
I wrote you a letter.
Yeah. We write each other's letters all the time we just, you know, we speak on Discord a lot.
Right.
So you were telling me that I actually don't know any of these people. You're like, here you are talking about all these hoes and how they shouldn't be hoes and how they're ruining their lives and their children's lives.
Well, I do know them, behavior. But not in my generation.
And you don't know these people. And I'm like, what? You know, like, oh, okay, now I get it. You know, I do know them.
Right.
I thought.
Well, and like I said, I do know them. They're just not my generation.
Yeah.
Like, it's my mother.
That was more widespread.
Right.
And when people were telling me, oh, you're just, you know, I would do the topics that I've done on Adventures in Stormlight Hollow, don't be a hoe and all that. And then they see that, they leave in the comment section and they're like telling me that that's a subjective experience and whatever words that they've used, you know.
Yeah. Well, it is a subjective experience.
To describe that. And I'm just like, that I'm projecting.
Most people are projecting.
Just because I'm talking from personal experience, that what's wrong with that?
Well, there's nothing wrong with it.
That not everybody has the same personal experience than me. Yeah. I thought that it was more widespread because I've lived in California and then I moved to Texas.
Yeah.
And what do I do? What am I attracting hoes? Like, why is this also the same experience and group of people that I know here in Texas as the people that I knew back in California? When I was in California, it was my generation. It was my friends. It was the people.
I can actually probably answer that in a sense. There's a huge amount of California transplants in Texas. Mm-hmm. So you actually kind of are in the same demographic that you were in California.
Yeah, I also am in the same class that I was in California.
Right. Sorry, I had a cat.
And in the same, around the same, like primarily Hispanic community. Like there wasn't a huge.
Yeah. And the class is also a really big contributing factor, obviously.
Yeah. There wasn't a huge difference in the experiences that I've had there and here, and the types of people that I've known, and the you know, my surroundings or whatever. Right. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's a surprise to you, but
no,
it's not a surprise to you that I only know a bunch of hoes.
Kind of. I mean, you already told me that,
yeah,
and
yeah,
because
it's not surprised, I mean, initially maybe it was like, where are you coming from? Oh, what?
No, that's
know all these people. Yeah,
well, kind of the assumption I made from the get-go, to be honest.
Drug addicts, people in and out of jail. Their baby daddies in and out of jail. They've got 5 kids, all by different dads. Those are the types of people I know. They're the types of people I know. And from my generation that I grew up with, the welfare queens and stuff in my neighborhood. And then as I had my own children, those are the types of people that they surrounded themselves with and know and are friends with to this day. And some of them have come out of it and some of them are still in it. And my daughter counsels them and they're still in our lives. And I still know these people, you know. So yes, my perspective is going to be very different from someone like you who says, that's not the culture that I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I know. And like, that's why like, it actually doesn't surprise me that these are the people that you grew up around. I kind of gathered that just from listening to you talk about it. My first instinct was, I think you are experiencing these things and thinking that they're more common than they are because that is the experience that you know. And so that's why like the first thing I even said whenever we started the conversation with Grayson on our podcast was that I feel like you're projecting a lot, which I'm not saying that's necessarily like bad. Everyone is usually projecting to some extent because people speak off their own experiences, obviously. And the only thing that we really have to be mindful of is knowing that we are projecting and knowing that our experience isn't universal. And that's the only thing I really want to bring to people is like, I'm not saying you can't talk about your experience. I want you to. I think that everyone's experiences are valuable, as long as you just know that it's not a universal experience. So yeah, and I don't want you to think that it's like a big widespread epidemic of like young people or like people in my generation all being like having that same lifestyle because of the music that we all have nowadays that is normalized. Because the millennial generation by and large is not like that.
Well, that was definitely the perspective that I was coming from, with the assumption that the people that I knew were representative of a wider demographic, and that music that glorifies promiscuity or promiscuousness or whatever the word is.
Promiscuity.
And promiscuity.
It's like going to be a meme that I correct you every time you say it wrong.
I know. That's
I'm like going to put it in my video, by the way. It's going to be like...
Yeah. But I find that very heartening to know.
That's what I wanted you to get out of it.
Yeah, I'm not wanting to argue at that point and say no, I'm right. I'm like, I'm glad to know that.
Yeah, that was my intention when I told you. It
Yeah,
wasn't for me to be like, I got you, you're
really?
wrong.
Like,
It was for me to
I
be
feel
like,
less
look,
hopeless.
don't worry. Like, it's not, we're not all like crumbling at the, seams.
Yeah, because you can understand my point of view. Like,
yeah. No, and I get your fears. Like, I understand that you're worried about.
Like WAP getting, and I know a lot of conservatives feel this way, and I don't know if it's because they all had the same personal experiences I have, probably not. But
I don't think Ben Shapiro has.
In the minds of this younger generation that's already kind of going down an immoral path, and there's a lot of pregnant and fatherless children being born, and a lot of welfare, and then you've got these promiscuous songs that is further glorifying having that lifestyle, and that vulnerable young people are listening to is getting into their minds. You understand what I'm saying, and probably everyone who's listening right now understands what I'm saying as well.
Although, to point of clarity, that childbirth has been decreasing, which I mentioned to you also. Not that there definitely are more single parents than there used to be. And I think there's a combination of factors for that, not just people having, like, I guess, more open sex, but also that it's more normalized to be a single parent. So a lot more people, when they're not happy in a marriage, get divorced nowadays than they used to. And a lot of people who just, like, didn't want to marry the person that they had a kid with don't. And there's like all kinds of other factors. And sure, some of it is also probably that there's more people that have more open sex, more sex out of wedlock and things like that than there used to be. And another thing I actually wanted to bring up on that topic was, how much do you know about the silent generation?
Nothing. What's the silent generation?
The silent generation are the parents of the baby boomers, right? And the baby boomers are baby boomers because they came out of a time period where there was a huge amount of childbirth, right? Mm-hmm. So that means that the childbirth was coming from the silent generation. The silent generation was from the 40s.
I thought that was considered the greatest generation. That's what I've told that generation was called.
I'm sure they have different names, but the ones that were like right after the Depression, essentially. I've heard them called the silent generation, but it doesn't matter what you call them. Point being, they were called the silent generation because they were very quiet about how sexually active they were, is basically the point that I'm getting at. They had this illusion or this facade of being like this completely modest society that some people might want, or that, that I tried to not assume that that's what you wanted, but that's kind of like how it came off to me at the beginning, I'll be honest. And like your dog right there.
He wanted to be pet. I couldn't turn it down.
Can't say no. But anyway, however, despite that cultural suppression of sex and sexual expression, they had a huge amount of kids, which is again why the baby boom happened. And a lot, like the single parenthood statistics doubled during that time period. So that was part of my thoughts on, like, I don't necessarily think that that music and culture is the sole contributing factor to how many kids people are having, I guess. Because they didn't have like this was before the sexual revolution. And yet, like I said, they doubled their single parent statistics, which was quite interesting. So just thought that like piece of history might also add a little bit of context. So
yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
I see some context there. Okay, I know we both have other things to do today, so I got a good point. I don't want to make you sad though. I know you think that you've gotten me this far, and I'm just gonna pull it on back now. But I did think of a correlation that I thought was worth exploring.
Go ahead.
Okay. And I want to be careful with this because I'm not trying to get anybody riled up here, but you tell me if I have a point. I see a correlation between, let's say, the slut acceptance movement and the fat acceptance movement. You know what I mean? Okay, so the fat acceptance movement, it takes, and I want to be able to be sure that I say this correct, like I said, and that I
know this is a touchy
point that I was thinking of earlier, to where I'm not just like sounding dumb here. But the fat acceptance movement they're glorifying something that could be unhealthy. They're taking something that's natural, and then it's gluttony. You know, they're advocating gluttony and then a lack of personal responsibility for the outcome.
Okay.
And I see that a correlation here.
I can see why you see the correlation.
Okay. You get my point, though.
I do get your point.
Okay.
I don't completely agree, but I understand the correlation that you're seeing in the fact that you perceive the culture of, like, in terms of how we view sexuality and sexual expression to be, it's not your fault if something bad happens, and, you know, do this thing that's not healthy and nobody can tell you otherwise. But I don't see the sexual expression culture as being like that. So,
right, I knew that would be your position.
Right, but I also will say, as far as the fat acceptance movement, there's a point where it's healthy and there's a point where it's not healthy, because it's absolutely positive to have a cultural movement that basically says, like, you shouldn't mistreat people because of their weight or the way they look. And you shouldn't make assumptions.
Hate yourself either, because you've made mistakes in your life, and maybe
you shouldn't hate yourself.
Choices.
You shouldn't make assumptions about people because you don't know why they're overweight.
Yeah.
There are some people who do have, like, a thyroid condition or a genetic disposition or something that isn't necessarily their fault, or maybe they have, you know, maybe they're depressed and maybe they, like, had a binge eating problem at some point. So, like, you don't know their reasons. And so it's more about respecting their decisions and their autonomy and not shaming them. Basically, like, it goes back to the shaming type thing.
So I still see the correlation here.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a slight correlation, as long as you also accept that, like, with the fat positivity movement, if the key message is to not shame people, then that also accounts for the sexual expression movement. But what you don't want, and what I agree with you on, is you don't want to encourage people to do things that are knowingly unhealthy. So, like, you don't want to be like, hey man, don't eat that salad. That's just, like, giving in to the patriarchy or whatever, you know what I mean? That is an unhelpful message in my view. As far as, like, the fat acceptance movement, like, if someone wants to be healthier and lose weight, that is 100% their right to do as well. And if they're doing it because people are making them, then okay, you can bring that up. But, like, a lot of people, like, I see on, you know, like the TikToks and things like that, where someone starts dieting or something like that, and then people start getting mad at them for it, like they're a traitor. Like, that's unhealthy. But that's not the entirety of, like, the idea of fat acceptance. So it's like, I like the idea of fat acceptance because I don't want people to judge people, like, and be shitty to them. But I don't like the idea of judging them in the opposite way, where you're, like, mad that they're making healthier choices now, or you're just saying they don't need to whatsoever. Or also saying, like, doctors shouldn't tell you to, like, eat better. Like, what do they know? I also don't agree with people saying doctors shouldn't tell you to not, like, be promiscuous. What do they know? Doctors are allowed to tell you, like, hey, you are having sexually risky behaviors, and so maybe you should get an STD test and maybe, like, slow down.
Maybe dial it back. Yeah.
Right. That's okay.
I still, the more you talk, the more I still see that correlation, though.
That's fine. And I'm not disagreeing with...
Because, yeah, you know, the fat acceptance movement, or more like the health at every size, I feel like they're giving people an excuse to not take personal responsibility and to not feel that they've contributed to their own outcome. You know,
Sure,
like that. Like, don't feel, it's not your fault. Don't feel bad. Eat that cake. Cake is good. If cake's good, then it's good. It's good. Like it. You know what I mean? And then the fat people are like, yeah, because I don't want to start eating cake, and so I'm gonna get in on this and believe what you're saying, so I don't have to accept any personal responsibility.
Right, and I just think
sexual empowerment movement can kind of be the same way, like maybe it's messing you up or whatever, like mentally, physically, it's hurting you in your life, but don't look at any of that, because you go, girl, you do you, don't,
here's the thing. So like I said, I feel like there are two separate messages, and one of them is healthy and one of them is unhealthy. And so the general sexual empowerment movement isn't like, don't take any responsibility, do whatever the hell you want and nobody can tell you otherwise. Like there is still like, at least as far as I've seen, again, with my culture and my generation, we still encourage sexually responsible behavior, and we encourage empathy a lot. And the majority of the body positivity movement is also like that, where it's like, you have whatever kind of body you want to have. And, if you want to be healthier, that's your choice. And, like, I'm not like, it's not necessarily the message, like you should eat all that cake because, fuck the man or whatever. But it's also like not the message that you should feel bad that you ate some cake, because that's how you get eating disorders. And also, like, again, it's the act of not assuming. And that is, to me, what the sexual empowerment movement is, and what the body positive movement is, until you take it to the place where it becomes counterproductive. And that's not the majority of people that are in the body positivity movement. It's not that they're not a problem.
The ones that get the attention, though.
So, yeah, they're the ones that get the attention, yeah, because it's controversial. But that's not the majority. And I would say that, like, yeah, there are some people that to them sexual empowerment can go to that place of encouraging people to be irresponsible, but I wouldn't put them in the majority either. And especially wouldn't say that they're necessarily the mainstream representation of like sexual empowerment as a concept. That's more of like a peer pressure thing almost, you know what I mean? So I don't know, that's my view. Like, you can compare the two, and I can see why you would. And I'm not saying that's an invalid comparison, but if you want to compare them, then also recognize that the message, the core message of the body positivity movement is not that you should be unhealthy, but that people should still respect you, essentially, and respect your decisions.
I agree with that. And I also agree, if you want to be promiscuous and you know all of the ins and outs of it, and you've made an educated decision, and that is the lifestyle that you've chosen for your own personal reasons, you have every right to be. Just like you have every right to decide that you don't mind being fat, you don't mind if there's some possible health ramifications, that you feel that it's worth it. It's your own personal decision, that you like the way you look, that you would rather eat whatever you want than care about what other people
Some
think.
people are like, I have one life, and if I want to spend that life eating
that's
cake,
a life that you choose to live. We're all here to live our own, be on our own paths and learn our own lessons. And as long as you're making an educated choice and you're not listening to a bunch of hype that's influencing you and causing you to go down a wrong path, then more power to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Common ground. Yay.
There we go.
Like that. Okay. Here's another subject that I wanted to bring up that we had brushed over in our previous conversations. And I just wanted to, explore this or enlighten people a little bit on something that you caused me to recognize, that conservatives so often have a problem with sexual content because they think it's going to get into your psyche and affect the, population at large in a negative way. But they don't seem to have the same type of problem with violent content.
Yep.
And why is violence or gun culture, or whatever you want to call it, violence culture, why is that more acceptable to conservatives than a sexual culture? Yes, maybe a sexual culture has the possibility of having some negative effects in some ways, but violence, that definitely has a negative effect. And we don't seem to care equally about those two subjects at all.
Yeah,
Isn't that interesting?
I'm glad that was a compelling point to you, because like that to me,
Something I hadn't
the big
considered.
hypocrisy. Yeah, it's the big hypocrisy of the right to me is that, and there's like a joke on this in like the South Park movie a long time ago, where it's like, except it wasn't sexual content, it was like swearing, but it was just like, yeah, you know, it's fine to have violence on TV, just don't say any naughty words. Like,
Yeah.
that kind of attitude where it's like, which one is really more harmful?
Right.
And the other thing that I also would compare it to is, again, if you want to talk about things like, you know, cancel culture, making a joke that some people might interpret as a racist joke. The argument that a lot of people on the left who are a part of that like woke culture have is that when you have these jokes in society, it inundates people with them to the point where they become racist secretly. I don't think that's true. I think you can make jokes as long as everybody knows that it's a joke, and you can still have a separate conversation where you educate people about racial issues. And that's how I feel about sexual content as well. You know, you can have your sexual content and all those things that you also need to have a separate conversation where you educate people about sexual education and health and all that stuff. So to me, it's the same thing. And so it's so funny that like people on the right, they don't see why wokies would have any kind of reason to think that all of this content that is, you know, that they want to censor is somehow affecting people psychologically to do those things, unless it's sex. Then they get it. So it's like, it is kind of funny. And so the thing that I've been dying to bring up is Anita Sarkeesian. Do you know who that is?
I've heard the name.
Yeah, she's pretty
So
infamous.
maybe if you start describing, I'll be like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, you'll probably remember her. And let me put this right out there. I don't like Anita Sarkeesian. She's a freaking con artist. She's known as she made a show called Feminist Frequency, and then she made like on that it was like tropes versus women, and then she got a big Kickstarter where she did tropes versus women in video games specifically, and essentially her entire platform is sex negative feminism, which I don't like, and I think is judgmental and is anti-progressive and all kinds of things like that. So sex negative feminism is essentially the idea that when you have sexual content in games and movies and things like that, it's training men to be misogynistic. And so therefore you can't have video games that have sexy characters in them and all that stuff. And then, you know, it's also the same argument with like violence in video games causes people to be violent and stuff like that. So you shouldn't have violent video games. And that's been debunked like for a long time now. Like Jack Thompson was the first person to bring that up a long time ago. I don't know, do you know who he is? He's been around for like decades. Well, not anymore. He's kind of faded away. But a long time ago, Jack Thompson was trying to get all video games like banned and canceled and all this stuff because they were making kids violent, supposedly. And they did all kinds of studies that showed that it wasn't. Like maybe in some cases, people become aggressive because of video games. Like, but you can be aggressive without being violent. And that's like not universal. It's also like an environmental thing. So that was debunked a lot, and he kept going to court over and over again with video games, trying to like get them all canceled. And eventually he got disbarred from it because people were just sick of it. They're like, all right, dude, we get it. You don't like video games. You think that they're going to make everybody shoot up their schools, but we have enough evidence that we don't think that's a problem. So drop it. And to me, Anita Sarkeesian was just like the feminist SJW version of that, where she's saying like all of these games where, you know, women have sexy outfits or like you can hit women in the video games or something, like that's going to train guys to abuse women. And I don't think that's a valid argument. You know what I mean? So to me, it like sounds like that, but on the right. And she's already been widely regarded, and by the right especially, as a con artist, but also by the left, like people on the left who are not insane, as a con artist, because she is one. But like, yeah, there were so many people on the right who knew that she was just completely speaking out her ass and nothing that she said had any merit to it. And yet these same people probably are like the same ones that are saying like cancel WAP, you know, that's going to make people become slutty. And so to me, it's like, what is the difference in these arguments, you know? So that's kind of where I wanted to talk about like the media influence aspect. And we have to accept that because of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, the First Amendment, and, you know, we don't like censorship, that all of these things are going to exist. And if they do influence people, then we just want to make sure that those people already have the groundwork and the education to know the difference between fantasy and reality, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's totally okay to counter the message of like violent, misogynistic video games by saying, hey, you should actually respect women in the real world, though. Just like it's totally okay for you to say, hey, you should consider the reasons why you're being promiscuous and try to not have risky sex if it affects people around you, especially. So.
Right. Yeah. What? Instead of trying to ban something, let's examine why people are finding it so compelling.
That's true too, but also a lot of the time, and in doing that, everybody finds things compelling for different reasons, and some people find them compelling for the wrong reasons, and those people are the ones that you want to worry about and maybe talk to specifically. But they would find the message that they would find that message eventually, even if you censored it from things that they were watching, because, like I said, I think there's a bit of a predisposition to things like that. And that's why things have a different effect on everyone that views them. So the people who would watch WAP and say like, yeah, risky sex, that sounds awesome, I want that, are the same people who would play a game where they beat up a woman and say like, I should do that in real life. Those people, the problem is that they are being influenced by media for a different reason, you know what I mean? So something that they need to address psychologically, right? So all of this comes down to mental health awareness and sex education and, mental health education and learning how to treat human beings with respect. So
there you go.
We're recruiting guests. So if you have opinions about stuff and you want to talk about them, please come contact one of us, and we would like to have you on our podcast to discuss issues that we talk about. So if you're watching this video and you're sitting there thinking all kinds of thoughts and being like, oh, I have this to say about it, please reach out to us. We're recruiting guests.
So let's wrap this up for today. I think that we explored every possible avenue here, and I feel good about where we are. I hope that everyone else got something valuable out of this discussion. And I think we're going to leave this here for now. So support.
Bury this topic.
Yeah.
Bury this topic for the near future.
Yeah. You never know, we might dig it up again, but for now, we're not going to be talking about the no-ho, pro-ho thing for a while, because I think we've done everything we needed to do.
Yep.
Like we said before, head on over to our Common Ground channel. We've got at least one video over there so far. The link's in the description below. James also has his own channel that you could go check out. He has some really cool witchy stuff over there, some tarot card readings.
I do tarot card readings. I did a tea leaf reading on Kai as an Onision's partner.
Yeah.
So if anybody is interested in that kind of thing, that's what I do. So.
All right, that's pretty cool. And of course, you want to watch all the episodes of Adventures in Snorling's Hollow, and hopefully you'll support me. Links below to books, t-shirts, my Etsy store. And I guess that's about it. So bye for now. Bye.
Bye.
Whores in this house, there's some whores in this house. Whores in this house with that wet ass pussy. Whores in this house, there's some whores in this house. Whores in this house with that wet ass pussy.